Well, I picked up a couple of the tomatoes that were outside, and oh, I'm doing the video. I'm not talking to you.
Sorry.
Sorry. So this is actually one of the Luger tomatoes, but it was getting kind of crummy looking. I think that the watering's been inconsistent, but I figured I'd bring it in, see what it turns into. Grabbed a handful of beans just so you could see how those were doing. I haven't picked many of them. And then this was just a little tomato off a branch that I cut off. And this was a bigger tomato. I thought I'd come in and let it redden up, just because it was another branch that it was almost dragging everything on the ground, so that was for that. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about something else that I do, and that's not too common, I guess, from what I know other folks do, and that's actually I prune back my vegetables. Just because I want them to be manageable, and it's kind of like weeding in my mind, that the extra growth, if you feel it's unnecessary, if it's not helping your plants, then it's almost like it's a weed right on the plant in my mind. That's not accurate in any way, shape, or form. But I consider a weed to be a plant that is taking away nutrients, it's making it more difficult for another plant to grow. And so here's what we got. We got two things. One was, if you recall, there were lots of volunteer tomatoes. These are all tomato plants. Everything here, anything that's on the ground were my tomato plants. They came out of my compost because I didn't let it cook long enough. So that was just silly on my part. But what was really silly is, look at this. It's like 2 feet long. It's a good sized tomato plant. You know, that's lovely. But here they are growing right out alongside of peppers, which are my favorite things, and absorbing more nutrition and all that fun stuff out of the soil than this little weed, you know, by I don't even know what factor. So I've got several pepper plants in here that were really hurting because I had those tomatoes in there, and the same over here. I had put that same compost soil in that I didn't bother to let it cook enough, and on some, this is one of the only plants that actually had legit peppers on it. So pruning, here we go. I get pretty brutal with it. So this is a branch that only had a few flowers on it, but really was growing out of a cage that was just going to make them fall over. It's going to make it difficult to manage, and essentially, just like the other tomato plants that I pulled out, we're pulling out nutrients. So you could see, back up down this aisle, it's really easy to get through, because I've taken out branches that were extending too far, and in some cases there's actually little tomatoes that were growing on some of these. But you just have to understand that eventually you're going to have other tomatoes like this one here, and some of these other little ones that are still on there that are going to be happier just because you prune that out. So it does take a little getting used to. Whoops. Oh, I just tripped over something here. So I kind of tripped on something, so I started up again. But it does take a little getting used to, but you know, what good is this branch here gonna do for that plant? Not a whole lot. So I just cut them, throw them in the paths, and you can either throw them on the path or just throw them right back as mulch. If you want, I put them in the path to let them dry out a little first, and just go with it. So it's a lot easier to work in here, to manage the garden by thinning that path out. And I'll step down to another one here where it's kind of difficult to get through, although I have made this one a little better. And here's another piece where I've trimmed stuff off. This is a squash plant of some sort. that things were just getting too long, and they were actually in some cases crawling up to where these peppers are growing, and these peppers are pretty happy. I'm actually really excited about these not hot jalapenos. I think they're delicious. But something to note about these squashes and things like that is when you pull them out, or when you cut them, you have to pull them out. Because take a look at this. These are roots that have grown right off of the stems, and I've actually cut the main root off of plants, and they've been able to survive just from those suckers that it puts down. And look at this guy. That's a big pumpkin. It's a tan cheese pumpkin. I'm guessing the size it is now, it's about the same size as one of the largest ones I had last year, and so you're looking at about a 16-pound pumpkin. Got another one back there, and I have at least one more that's about that size. So honestly, trimming things back is not a big deal, because what are you going to do with 30 pounds of pumpkin, especially when I didn't use all of what I had last year. So pruning my plants, my garden plants, and the vegetable garden is something that I definitely feel is good to do. Get more peppers.